So I completely forgot that we put this question in here, honestly. So this is going to be tough.
Do you want to rip it out and just like put a pin in it, or do you want to
No,
give it a shot?
we're going to answer it. And
yeah, let's go. Welcome back to another episode of The Rounds from SEMD. This is the video series where we break down the real strategies driving modern dealership growth, marketing performance, digital dominance. It sounds like a lot of fluffy words, but as you guys know, if you've tuned in to listen to Cody and Mike, myself, and other SEMD team members talk, this is just about as real as it gets. And so I can't wait to get into it. Cody has actually put a lot of thought into what we're going to talk about today, what we're calling the filter barrier. Did I get that right, Cody?
yes, he did.
All right. So the reality is most dealer websites are still built like digital catalogs. You click new, you click use, then you're dropped into some kind of maze of filters, a virtual fun house, as I've called it for years. But by the time a shopper gets there, they've already done their homework somewhere else. Might have been on a third-party site, Edmunds. Maybe they're on Reddit. They're watching content on YouTube, all these other places. So the big question is, what are dealerships losing? Like where and why are they losing in this research phase? And can they win it back? How do they win it back? So today we're going to unpack some of that, how to shift from being just an inventory hub to becoming a more trusted resource. That's really what car buyers are looking for in a dealership, somebody they can trust. So by creating what Cody talks about as utility content, pages that are built literally around real shopper intent, what the intention of their interest is, not just the specifications of the vehicle. So we're going to explore why these filters aren't really doing what you think they are. You probably not even thought about how you should be filtering on your site, and how Google actually sees your inventory, what it takes to show up before the shopper actually ever lands. So let's get into this today, because if you're not answering this question, someone else is getting the customers that you should be getting. So here's the question to think about as we jump into this. We all know that the standard dealership website, you've got a new button and a use button and a bunch of filters. But by the time the customer hits those filters, they kind of already know what they're looking for. The research has been done. There's not always a deep amount of research being done at the dealership site. In fact, oftentimes you're the last stop before that purchase gets made. So what's the filter barrier, and why is it currently the biggest SEO bottleneck for dealerships? That's what we're getting into. Cody, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, let's talk about this, the blind spot, the SEO blind spot. A lot of dealers use Ajax or parameters that really aren't indexable. That might be something you want to cover a little bit, just so dealers understand what are you guys talking about. But can you explain why having a, for example, towing capacity filter is not the same thing as having a towing capacity SEO strategy?
Yeah. So I can't remember the exact year it was, but I remember I was on a call with one of our clients this is years ago, and it's still our client, but we looked at Google Search Console and we saw the number of pages indexed just fall like a rock. And what had happened is Google released an update about pagination, where they were going to kind of punish pages that weren't properly labeled with pagination. And I don't think they ever actually did that. But when that update came about, almost all the website companies like Dealer.com, DealerOn, basically everybody added canonical tags to all these filtered navigations. So if you go to like a new SRP, just like new vehicles, let's say you're on Dealer Inspire, and add any of the filters, it's going to change the URL structure for whatever filter you applied, let's say trucks. But that page has a canonical on it, which is telling Google, don't index the page that you're on, index this other page that is the actual page, because this is a duplicate page. And it was an easy way to avoid, the risk of a penalty if Google was going to follow through with the pagination. But basically all these long tail pages that dealerships had for, all the way up into, let's say it was like 2015, maybe. Like it was quite a while ago now that this has been an issue. But prior to that, like all these different faceted navigation pages existed. They're indexable. So if you had a filter on the left side for towing capacity, that page would have been indexable. And now it's just not. And where we see the biggest problem is something as simple as like used trucks. Like you don't have a used trucks page on your website, even though there's lots of people in your market probably searching for used trucks.
Mm-hmm. That's okay. That just seems almost like something that's too easy to sneak up on dealers. One, because I mean, for the average dealer, they're not brushing up on their own personal SEO skills and what's changing in that dynamic and what's changing in that particular area of their overall digital marketing efforts. Wow. So when you guys just as an aside on this question, when you guys are having your dealer meetings, you guys talk to your clients a lot. Um, is it more often that you guys are proactively helping them identify things like this, like where did this come from? Versus, have you ever had the dealers see that this is happening, or tell you that, hey, my vendor told me there's been a new addition, or maybe something changed in the platform, like they already knew it ahead of time proactively?
No. And you and I were, even before this podcast started, we are discussing an update where a program that is looking for essentially non-compliance is wiping out content. And I think this can become more and more prevalent because with, the introduction of AI and be able to develop faster, we're probably going to see the introduction of, WordPress plugins that are going to help with OEM compliance, which is probably going to do a lot of harm as I try to figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah, that feels like I'm from the government. I'm here to help. It feels like that.
100%.
Run away. Oh boy, that's interesting. Okay, well, let's talk a little bit about lifestyle gaps. If a shopper is looking for, let's call it, best SUVs for 3 car seats, or maybe trucks that can tow a 30-foot camper trailer. I have a 26-foot camper trailer. Where should a dealer start to find that's a specific high intent search term?
So I would start with an internal search. In preparation for this, I opened up somebody who has a wide open search bar. Like you can type anything into it just to see what was there. In the last 28 days, they had 1,770 unique searches in that search bar, which I wasn't expecting to see that many when I opened it up, honestly. I was just like, okay, find a random site that we know has open search. And I started going through these. And one of the searches is an obvious one, which was captain seats. I was like, oh, this website platform is going to crush captain seats. Like, there's no way this could be a bad thing. I go, just copy the full URL, paste it in, and boop, no cars. I'm like, oh no. Like, that's going to be a very sad customer who's like, oh yeah, let's just go look for captain seats because they probably have car seats. Maybe they have 2-3 kids. And it's going right back into that, best cars for 3 car seats. Like, that content just does not exist. I think cars.com had it back in like 2018 and nobody's had it since. And this is actually an internal running joke. Whenever somebody asks, like, at the dealership, is there something we could do? Like, what content we can help you produce? And I say, yeah, content about car seats. Like, there's, 2,000 searches per month for somebody searching for cool mom cars. And there's not a single piece of content on the internet that addresses it and shows car seats. How much room is there in the back seats for your teenage kids? Like, it's an easy piece of content. You go and grab some of these teenagers at the dealership, make them sign a thing saying you can use their photos for however long, and demonstrate what it's like putting a car seat in the car, because nobody has the content, but there's, 20 different car seats around the dealership right now because of employees that you can go and borrow and just show, like, here's how you put the car seat in this car, and this is how much space it has.
Yeah.
It's a specific niche. You have, let's say, 30 of your customers or potentially moms. It's easy content that just does not exist on your website that you could serve a specific purpose. And then going further, the captain seats, the thing that really sticks out for me is, one of our employees is literally searching for vehicles with captain seats. And she's going through that problem right now where she can't find the cars. She has to go and look through photos because there is no filter that properly exists on any of these websites for it.
Wow. I mean, the car seat's such a brilliant example, actually. And with all of the people who are constantly flooding the zone with dealers on, you need to make more content or do this type of content. I mean, you just dropped a really brilliant idea. Not only is it helpful for them to make sure that they have that available to all the people that are looking for it, but it totally opens the door for them to do something that some people might find actually kind of fun and enjoyable in doing their job. Imagine actually going, like you said, finding those people and taking some videos and how-tos And now you can write some copy about it, and it's all on point, and it's exactly what the person who's interested in car seat capacity, how does it go in, how does it fit, how does it look, let me see how much headroom, like all that kind of, they would love it. Like, absolutely love it. It's a niche within the retail auto business, but it's a big one. It's a provable one. So that's good. You mentioned yeah, no kidding, right? The search bar. So the dealers, their own search bar being a gold mine. What are some of the maybe weirdest or most common things that people type there that dealers usually don't have a dedicated page for?
So the most obvious ones are going to be things
Other
like
than car seats.
captain seats, third row seats, or third row SUVs, large SUVs, regular cab trucks. It's going to be specific things around that they are going to trust the dealership website for, because they've kind of been taught already that it's not going to produce deep levels of pages and content. So we see a lot of specific model searches. We see model trim, which again, if your trim pages are not indexable, if somebody's going on the internet searching for a Nissan Kick S Turbo, let's say, you probably don't have an indexable page on your website for it. So a customer searching for something like that, it's going to rely on paid search to get to your website. So it's going to be specific trims, and then we're going to get into things like specific seat configurations, moonroof, sunroof, things like that. And a lot of these produce pages that do not have any vehicles on them. So even in an audit of that internal search, you're going to be able to see all kinds of stuff. And as always, when you have a gigantic spreadsheet, because I would recommend downloading a whole year's worth of data, throw it into ChatGPT, Gemini, something, and just say, break this down to the specific queries people are utilizing, and nest them together. I can't remember what it's called. It's like a tree graph where it like just shows it branching off. But I would do that to get a really good sense of it. And on top of that, there's other tools out there. I think it's like Ask the Web or Ask the Public, where it gives you all the different ways that people search for terms. And the one we use internally is called KW Finder by Mangools. And you can type in a base seed keyword for it, like best SUVs, and then they can say, I only want to see search terms that are 4 or more words. From there, you can say, okay, this is how people are searching on the internet for this stuff. So if your website was able to do the same functionality, they would definitely enjoy it more.
I totally agree. Why don't you spell Mangools for those who are like, what's that?
Mangools. It's like
Mangools.
And their logo's a mango. So I don't know the rhyme or reason. That's like $250 a year, I think. And you can do all the keyword research you'd ever want to.
Yeah. That's a drop in the bucket for most dealers and what they're spending in their digital marketing budgets. So love that. And I love that you're everything you're talking about here, but here, this one certainly reminds me of when you guys are having conversations with dealers around conversion rate optimization. This is one of those areas where if you don't know this, if you don't understand how to actually get all that you can out of a place on your website where you want to generate traffic, or you want to generate at least moving people through the micro conversions to the macro conversion, like there are probably a lot of things that you can do within the search bar. There's probably a lot of things. I was on a Motive site just the other day that had Ask AI. It literally says Ask AI as the pop-up. So I asked AI, who's the dealer principal? Do you think I got an answer? No.
No, that was an intense question right away. Like,
who's the general manager? Right? Who's the general manager? All of this was spawned by somebody in the automotive industry who was kind of lamenting that staff pages seem to be disappearing on dealership websites. And I'm like, the only reason why you're even making this post is because you use it as a prospecting tool to go and badger dealers, right? Now, is there an argument on both sides of having a staff page and not having a staff page? There is. There really is. But when you're a vendor who's like, man, trying to position it as you care about that user experience side of the fence, that's not really what they're talking about. Anyway, I digress. Let's talk landing page versus blog. There's kind of always a little bit of a debate on where this content should actually live. And so if you're writing about off-road ready Jeeps, end quote, when is that a permanent landing page and when is that just a blog post?
So this is going to be a weird direction to take this, I think. But number one,
I like it
it'll depend
already
on your
then.
website platform, because certain platforms just don't have blogs. Like if you're on a dealer on website, you have to ask them specifically to install a WordPress blog for you. And it's a completely separate login. The dealer.com, they have their own functionality for blogs, which I'm not a fan of. And they have lots of tickets from me of explaining why I'm not a fan of it. But let's say you're on Dealer Inspire, which is a WordPress-based website. It has a blog already built in. It's going to depend on how actively you want to manage it. With a blog post, it has categories already attached to it, so you can lump together, do internal linking between those blog posts really, really easily with those, and you can still insert products or your inventory directly into those pages with different widgets. So it's easier to manage the SEO using a blog because it already has a built-in internal linking system through the categories. You don't have to actively manage it as much. So it will depend on how much effort you want to put into actually doing all the internal linking, because that aspect of technical SEO is really, really important to nail. So we're on the opposite side. When we build content and build pages, we typically build them as pages because we have systems in place that actively build all of our internal linking for us as we make the content. So rather than having to go back and say, okay, this should link here, it's already a part of the system. Like we built it into, when we're using AI to build content, it's literally reading a database of the other pages we have existing so that it's going to go and build the internal linking for us automatically. So it's part of our system to always do those. So we tend to go towards pages. But if I were in dealership, I'm trying to write this content, I would probably write it as a blog post. And with categories, there's also tags within WordPress. I 100% do not recommend using tags. When Google's penalties for low quality pages came out, they hit tag pages like crazy because adding content to a tag page is really, really difficult. You have to write some PHP. So I never use tags when I'm on a WordPress site. Still, even if I'm controlling the full website, I don't use tags. But the categories, you can typically put some content on the category pages so they're not as thin. But by doing that internal linking between the categories, and make sure you're not making a whole bunch of duplicate categories, because categories are really easy to make duplicate content that will punish your website to an extent. Not as much as it did, in 2016, 2012 when all this stuff was coming out, but it's still not ideal to have a whole bunch of duplicate content. So choose one category. If your category is, Ford Maverick, don't have a whole bunch of Ford Maverick categories. Just have the one, unless you're going after, just in general, just have one. Like there's nuances to it, but to skip all that, I wouldn't. So to end the answer, if I was internal, I would be using blog posts because it's the easiest to manage. You can put all the content there. And what we're finding a lot of is that so many of these pages are being made as SRPs. Like we do mostly SRPs because we want the search to be transactional. It's easier to rank a page with more words on it, with the words being higher on the page and front and center. You just have to make sure that you have a call to action right away of getting people off that blog post and pushing them directly to, whatever is going to be transactional. So if you're trying to sell accessories, push them to accessories, because off-road ready Jeeps, you're going to be pushing people towards, potentially accessories too. But it depends on your internal structure. Blog posts are easier to manage if you're able to have the categories. If your website does not support blog posts in that way, then you're going to have to pay really good attention to your internal linking so that a user can land on that page. They can be pushed to relevant pages. And also just with SEO, it's going to pass authority from page to page that you link to.
So definitely you need to find out what your website platform will or will not allow you to do as you think about that strategy. I have to just pause right here and say to the viewers and or listeners of this episode, if you hear information like this and you're like, man, this Cody guy just can go to the depths on this topic, and you start to feel overwhelmed by it. The reason why I'm taking a pause here is because this has been, I'm certain of it because I know Cody quite well, his entire career. It's been my entire career in automotive, that when you get into the complexity of topics, there aren't a lot of people that say, it's cool, like I'll take all the time you need to answer questions. If you need somebody just to say, I can trust that they'll tell me the truth and they're the expert in what they do, you need to go over to LinkedIn either now, hit pause, go over and get connected with Cody and the SEMD team, because you can send Cody a direct message on LinkedIn and say, hey, I saw this. I've got a question about this. Let me know when we could talk. You need to have resources in this industry that can help protect you from the people who are literally wolves in sheep's clothing. And there are seemingly more and more of them every single day. So that's my little pause in the middle to say complex topics abound in every industry when you talk about SEO and digital marketing. There are unfortunately precious few people who do a great job in what they do in terms of bringing service to the table, but can explain it. So don't sleep on that. If you need to get connected to people who will ask you for nothing in return, but want to educate you and give you information first, you got to reach out and get connected with Cody and Mike and the SEMD team. They're some of the literally most honest people in the industry that you could work with. So there's a little endorsement for you. And I never do that on these episodes,
Heck
but
yeah.
I'm getting so tired of dealers being taken advantage of, people who, and we talked about it before we started rolling, Cody, but there's lots of people even that we know, and that's not that they're the worst people in the world. They're likable people, but they may not be leading you in the right direction because something else is actually dictating the way that they operate their business. So let's move on. I want to know, because I know you have like a best of strategy. So talk to us about that. Why should dealerships be considering, like, which only sells a dealer that's like a one or two brand? Why should they be creating a best of lists? Doesn't it feel like something like maybe that's a car magazine, like maybe that's Car and Driver, than you would do at a local dealership?
Oh man. Something not to do with SEO first. I would say authenticity, because it's really easy to win people over when you're more authentic. So if you make a best of SUVs list and you're for dealership and you put the Expedition first, be like, we're 100% biased. We love our product. The Expedition's the best SUV on the market. But here's why people also consider these other vehicles. It's that level of authenticity and honesty where you're saying, these other SUVs are good.
Mm.
And if we have any used ones in stock, here's a link over to it so you can buy from us instead.
Yeah. I love
But
that. That's smart.
and just in general, people, when they're starting to try to decide what kind of vehicle, like there's tons of people that search best SUVs for XYZ. And like I did some research beforehand. And the problem with keyword research is a lot of stuff gets lumped together. So best SUVs and great SUVs are probably going to be combined together into one metric for most of these SEO tools out here, just because you can't get a true number. But in general, like people searching, great SUVs or best SUVs, there's 94,000 searches last month. Like that is a crazy number. And the result you get, you're going to get Car and Driver probably first. Like you're not going to be able to beat them. But as you go down the page, because people are going to, do pogo sticking, they're going to click the first link, go back to the second link, go back because they're in research mode. So if your dealership is showing up fourth or fifth in that search locally, like you have a shot at getting that traffic and convincing that they need to buy a Ford Expedition, because a lot of these awards, a lot of these different things, like there's bias built into it. I don't know the levels of what it takes to be biased in any of these research articles because I'm not in that niche, but there's definitely, a way to cater favor to get better reviews from these companies. So you're following the same exact suit. You're going to favor your vehicle first, put it absolutely first, whatever it is. First one's Ford Expedition. Next one's, Ford Explorer. Next one's Ford, whatever. But then talk about the other vehicles, because Tahoe is also a really great SUV. So is Suburban. I mean, go through all these. You can discuss everything that is local in the market. And there's two benefits to this. One, if somebody is searching best SUVs, you do have a shot of showing up locally when somebody searches that. Two, with AI search showing up now in those results, you have a chance now to show up because you're not unbiased. Google can see that you're a Ford dealership hosting this content, but you do have a real chance of showing up in there to say, the Tahoe is a good SUV in Utah because of these reasons. Like you have a good chance of showing up in all those search results as well in the AI, as long as you're being authentic and being relevant to the local market. Mm-hmm. And three, if somebody searches for a Chevy Suburban in your market, you have an off chance with that blog post to show up in the top 10 of the results. And people may click you.
Yeah.
I used to call that Barnacle SEO because there was an article in like 2011 that called it Barnacle SEO because you're not trying to win a first spot. You're just trying to attach yourself to that name, as they
Yeah.
go searching. So you get that brand awareness, kind of like that was the argument. Same thing for like nonprofits. You're not going to beat United Way, but if you sponsor United Way and have a blog post, you might show up second there and be like, oh, so-and-so Motors also sponsors United Way.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember the kind of the era of Barnacle SEO. I
Oh,
do
yeah.
remember that. I remember that. And I love that you also mentioned that this type of activity is it's not a guarantee that the AI that the language models are going to pick it up. I don't know if anybody guarantees you anything within the language models, you probably should run. That's probably the advice there. But more and more, and I'm sure you're seeing this as well, I'm kind of surprised to see, wow, like what's getting picked up. And sometimes it's, from an automotive company that's trying to speak their, whatever their truth is about a particular topic. And yeah, dealer pages like you said, like they can be thin, but when they're thoughtful and when they're literally focused the right way, you may surprise yourself. And this is activity, by the way, that you shouldn't be because you can't find the right people internally to hire. If every dealership could, they would. That'd be ideal, but you're likely going to have to go outside for that expertise, which is why we talk about it on episodes like this. Let's talk about something else that is, kind of for the non-techie crowd, like programmatic SEO. How can dealers create dozens of need-based pages, fuel-efficient commuters, all-wheel drive sedans, without manually being like 50 different pages one by one?
So I completely forgot that we put this question in here, honestly. So this is going to be tough.
Do you want to rip it out and just like put a pin in it, or do you want to
No,
give it a shot?
we're going to answer it. And
yeah, let's go.
Not every website platform is friendly to this. There are going to be website platforms, like we just discussed this before this podcast, like Motive, who have the ability to take a spreadsheet from the dealership and build all these pages for them. Like they have APIs built for agencies. I've not personally experienced them or interacted with them, but they have demonstrated fully to me in presentations that Motive can take stuff like this and automatically build all these pages for you. I think Overfuel has a way to do it not the same level as Motive, because I think Motive is straight up like it has AI that will go and take your feed and then build it for you.
Mm-hmm.
Overfuel, I think, has the ability to generate a lot of these as well quickly, and maybe they just have a really good internal process to build them. But most of the time, if you're trying to do programmatic SEO, you have to override stuff on dealership websites. And maybe I'll get myself in trouble with this one, but for example, on a dealer.com website, we place random blank tags all over dealer.com websites. It could be on VDPs, it could be on SRPs. Like we put tags that just have an ID for us. And we use script to go and rewrite canonical tags so the pages are now indexable. What isn't ideal, randomly Google will still find the canonical and drop a page out of search results. But by doing that, reading the data layer of the website and reading the content of the page, we're able to dynamically insert SEO, like in the title tag, the H1, rewrite descriptions, because the vehicle description on a BDP is not useful to organic search, but we can take all the same exact information and rewrite a description, not in the same spot as the regular description, but somewhere else on the page that's indexable, and make us rank for really long tail phrases. So it depends on the platform you're on. A lot of the times it's not easy to do in automotive websites. I think this is going to change as people advance. But you can override functionality with different scripts. Like if you place a Google Tag Manager on the website, you can do a lot of fun stuff. Like good examples on a dealer-on platform where they have a spot within the header where you can insert code. Mm-hmm. Like you can choose to display different offers, promotions, whatever, based off the URL structure, write title tags, and just completely overhaul the platform because it's not going to function the way you want it. Due to canonical tags and different no-index tags, you can completely change the system so that it's really advanced. but I don't know if they'll like that I do this. So hopefully they don't take away our ability to do this if they're listening to this podcast.
Well, hopefully they'll recognize that there's actually tremendous benefit to it. The automotive website vendor world has always been somewhat of a wild one, and although it's a red ocean of competition and fully saturated, who would want to be in that industry? I wouldn't. But what we're talking about, really what you're sharing, those are, I think, the things exactly that they should be talking about that are differentiators. If Dealeron, well, in this case, Dealeron has a point of functionality built in into their header that 10 others don't, or in the top 5 by way of market share don't have them, or only 1 out of the top 3. That's a selling point if you know what you're talking about. That doesn't sound like your stupid pitch deck that you've asked your marketing team to rebuild every other month. So hopefully they wouldn't see that as a bad thing, and they would realize, no, that's actually, man, that's a great point. You probably gave somebody a new way of being able to sell to people who might care more about the technical depth or capabilities within a platform. Well, let's talk a little bit about and you mentioned it a few minutes back, Canon, the Canonical issue that, people are like, oh, okay. Because you mentioned that these filter-generated pages are hidden from Google by Canonicals. How can a dealer's marketing team audit their site in a way if their best inventory is actually invisible to the search engines?
So the first one is to go through the faceted filters on your website, that Ajax on the side, and just start applying filters to the page. The URL structure should change at the top of the page for you so you can see it. Right click and do view page source. And then it depends if you're on a Mac or PC, but you're going to do a Control F if you're on a PC for a search function, and just type in the word canonical, Canonical. And you're going to see if there's a canonical on the page. If there is, and it is different than the URL structure at the top of the page, that page is essentially not indexable. Sometimes it will override and pop in, but for the most part, it's not going to allow that page to index. The second thing is old school. Go to your homepage, go to edit the URL, and delete off everything before the actual domain. So if you're, whatever motors, you're going to leave whatevermotors.com for that last part. In the front of that part, you're going to put site and colon. And this is a site search, so it's only going to search for your website. And then after that, put a space and then type in the word, like if you're a Chevy dealership, Silverado. And this is going to show you all the pages on your website that are actually in the Google search results that mention Silverado or are relevant for Silverado. And this will give you a good idea of how many pages are actually indexed on your website for that. If you have 80 Silverados in stock and only 20 show up in that search result, you have an indexation problem, and you need to figure out how you're going to get more of your actual VDPs indexed, because we find a lot of VDPs never get indexed by Google. They never show up in search results, and that's something you're missing out on. Like, the content is very difficult not to be duplicate to each other, so I get why. But part of it is, all this faceted navigation that made it so Google could crawl to different layers and find these pages better is just gone. Like, the pagination saying don't index all these different pages of search results. So Googlebot may only go a couple pages deep on your new search for new vehicles. It's not going to find all the cars unless you're a really small dealership. So the other benefits, all this, if it's indexable, if it's crawlable, Google can find more of your VDPs and you can show up for more long tail search. So, do the Control F, see if it's actually tagged on your website that this page should not be indexable, and do actual search results to see how bad it is. Like, if not all the pages aren't indexed, like, it is what it is. Like, Google has a budget. It may not crawl all the pages on your website, but if it's the majority not indexed, then you got an issue.
Here's another example of why you should reach out and get connected with Cody. And listen, not for nothing, you have more recently started to post on LinkedIn. I think not just the credibility layer, but you mentioned the word authentic just a couple of minutes ago. You are authentically sharing things in the open without trying to embarrass people or vendors, but you're like the champion of who needs one, and that's the dealers. Like, you need to know these insights, but at the same time, you understand that these are complex topics for the average dealer. And I'm always the guy that says, so dealers, when you find people like this, get connected with them, because they won't ask for anything in return other than let's start a relationship where you actually have a trusted resource. And if it's sometime in the future we can be a help to you in some other way, great. But at least start by connecting with people who are not absolutely full of Nike stuff, because there's just so much of that. I want to talk about something that you call, I think it's like a local market multiplier. So how would you take a broad topic like electric vehicle incentives and localize it so that a dealership in Ohio isn't competing with, say, a national site like Tesla.com?
So localized content is really critical because some people do have really, really short searches. What we're finding with like vehicle ads and just in general now in paid search, people search like Nissan Sentra. They don't go further a lot of the time. So if you're trying to show up in that search, like you can't optimize for Nissan Sentra alone because you're not going to win that national search. At least you shouldn't try to, because that's going to be a lot of traffic outside of market that's not going to help you. So you need to localize the content. Sometimes that is specifically your city. So you just say Nissan Sentra in wherever you're at. So Google knows clearly that this vehicle is in this market. Or we see the word near a lot, like it's near this market. But sometimes it's not the city name. Like if you go into California, people search Orange County more than the individual cities just because they're looking in the general region. And you need to evaluate that. Like, should you be showing up for Cleveland or should you be showing up for some small town around Cleveland?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you need to have both. Like we have a dealership who they're in the small town and the big town next to them, but they're actually the big dealership. So people will search for them by location as well because they do want to come to that dealership. So you got to do some keyword research, go into Google Search Console, see how people are searching for you. Use KW Finder, like I mentioned earlier, to see what the search volumes are for individual cities or locations, and create content that, ultimately, you actually have to create useful content. So if you're talking about a Toyota Tacoma and you're in a major metro, why is it a Toyota Tacoma the right truck for them in that market? Why is this SUV a good SUV if they're in, Paris, Tennessee? You need to have that context and that relevancy so that Google finds you to be more localized than the next dealership over. And this would be something I would call it LDA or latent derelict allocation, because this is a way back. I think in like 2009, Sean Gollier and Rand Fishkin got in a debate over the utilization of Riemann's coefficient and the utilization of trying to create a study for SEO. And they're debating like if it was properly utilized. And it turns out that Moz didn't properly utilize Riemann's coefficient when determining the correlation of utilizing latent derelict allocation when optimizing a page.
Mm-hmm.
But LDA fell out of favor like instantly. And now I think they call it LSI or latent semantic indexing keywords, because that was way cooler than LDA.
Yeah.
But the overall context or aboutness of the page, because it's easy to say that this is, Jaguar. Jaguars are fast. Jaguars are sleek. Jaguars are powerful. And Google's like, animal or car, bro? I don't know what you're saying.
Yeah.
So you put into the context, this is a Dallas dealership, and actually talk about why it's a Dallas dealership and the relevancy thereof. If you throw in a sprinkling of those words and nobody else does, you have a slight advantage over everybody else.
Love it. Also love that you mentioned Jaguar. I think that's the first time anyone said anything about that brand in quite some time. Now I say Jaguar, a lesson in horrible marketing.
I think it's actually Eric Enge, The Art of SEO. I think Jaguar is actually referenced in there. I haven't read that book in forever. It's on my shelf literally to look special. And I think it's off screen right now. So it did not help at all.
No. If you go to your favorite language model and do some research on what's happened with Jaguar's market share in the last 5 years, there's a pretty significant inflection point of somebody's maybe not so great decision, unless they were literally trying to torpedo a brand and put it down forever, which is kind of sad because I know the old ones always came with an oil leak or whatever, but for some reason, over through the years, I've always kind of liked Jaguar. They're just, or Jaguar, if you're from the UK. They're like, you don't pronounce it right, Americanos. So
I did not know that.
Yeah. You will have people tell you, no, the real pronunciation is, it's a little too bougie for me. So I'll keep with Jaguar. And when you threw out Paris, Tennessee, I thought you had a little pause there. I thought you were going to say Paris, Texas, because there's a Paris, Texas.
No, I went for the smaller, less relevant one.
Yeah, well, Paris, Texas isn't too big, but there are some rural dealers in that area for sure. Let's talk about. In fact, I think it might be the last thing, and then I'll let you go. Let's talk about the research that somebody's doing they become a sales opportunity. They become a lead. They become, I like to call it's demand, right? You're creating demand. You've got to capture that demand. You have to convert that demand. There's this journey. Dealers call them leads. Okay. But you create the lead, you capture the lead, you convert the lead. I'm trying to let's stop calling them leads all the time because I think it misses a whole lot of the context. But let's say a customer lands on best SUVs for snow, and it's a page. They're clearly in research mode, right?
Yep.
How do you transition somebody from that reading the guide or booking the test drive to all the way to, from those two things? They're basically self-educating and then they're ready to come in. I want to drive it. I want to check it out. How do you do that without it feeling really pushy or, I don't know, a little too contrived?
So the easy way on the UX of itself is getting people to go to a specials page. And a lot of the time you do not have individual model specials. On some platforms like Dealer Inspire, it's easier to do that because it's built into the system. But you do want to drive somebody directly to the offers for that vehicle because if they're researching it and they're interested, the best way to convince them that they can afford it is dropping them onto a lease or a finance page and they can see that payment, or they can take themselves right out of the market for that vehicle as well, depending on what that offer looks like. But the specials is going to be the easiest transition because they would say, okay, what are the current offers? What's a discount? Because if there's a deal, I may consider it right now. So the specials page is going to be the direct way on that page itself. The other one's just going to drive them to inventory. If they're kind of in that research mode, driving them to a regular old SRP or search results page probably won't motivate them as much as something else. But you'll want to get them thinking more of maybe I can afford this car, or maybe this is the right car for me, and that'd be through a specials. If I weren't going to do it right on the website, this is going to get into the creepy levels of marketing, but I would work with the OTT streaming company that I'm working with. I would tag that page somehow. They may not be able to do it very well. It'll be a combined asset because I think they need an audience of 1,000 or more people to make it work. But if you combine that with people who looked at VDPs and SRPs of all your SUVs together, you can have a piece of content that would show to them, why this car is the best car or why this SUV is the best SUV. Facebook, you can work with a much smaller audience. I think technically it says it's 100 people. I think Google dropped down to 100 people as well for their stuff. So you can get them a lot sooner and do it dynamically. But I would stock them a bit with some video content because if they're in research mode, use a piece of video content, which, we don't do video. A lot of people do. But I would use that to motivate them or kind of push them down the funnel a little bit further. And on top of that, also retarget them with those offers if you can. Yeah. So if there's certain lease offer that's good right now, retarget them with those lease offers and keep in front of them you can afford this, you can afford this. This is a good deal. And also, it's the best SUV.
It's definitely what you're talking about is building a well-planned journey. It's almost like plotting out exactly the path that makes sense for that person who's researching to make sure it feels, kind of gentle, natural, right? That's the the thing that you want the consumer to be feeling is like, oh, this is just kind of, I go from one to the next and it's leading me all the way through to, and now I feel really comfortable, or this is definitely the vehicle I want. I love that. I lied a little bit in that I do have one last thing. It's kind of the takeaway question from the conversation. So that is, if a dealer listens to this conversation, they want to fix this one thing on their website Monday morning to start capturing what you're talking about here, which is a lot of intent-based visits and traffic. What's the one page every dealership's missing right now that would move the needle the fastest?
So it depends on what you're focusing on, if it's new or used, but it's going to probably be a trucks page. If you sell used trucks and you sell quite a few used trucks, your website probably does not have a page that's indexable and rankable right now for used trucks. And it's also going to be something that people do very often, is search for used trucks on your website if you sell a lot of them. So you're going to want to make the page for used trucks, and I'd put city state directly in the URL structure. So if you're in, Paris, Texas, it'd be used trucks, Paris, Texas, right in the URL structure. Mm-hmm. And I would add that page to the menu, the drop down under used. This is such a stupid way to get people to where they want to go faster. And we've seen pages hit like 1,000 sessions where they are going to this page either directly through organic search or through the menu system, just trying to find used trucks. Mm-hmm. It's such a really, really easy way to generate more leads and to do it in a way that's actually helpful to people.
I love that tip. That's something that actually maps pretty well to somebody like me. Like, I'm a truck guy, bought my truck in Texas, live in Texas. I can't say that I've been on a site that does that, and that would have been really helpful. Even in the last truck I bought, would be really helpful. Okay, so we've wrapped up another episode of The Rounds from SEMD with Cody Jerry. If there's one thing to take away, or there's probably lots of things to take away, but think about this. Don't let your website just be a catalog. Make sure that it's actually being very consultative. Make it a consultant itself. Dealerships that are winning in today's market, they don't just list their cars. They actually answer questions. They solve problems. They show up exactly in the moment that a shopper begins their journey. And that journey is into relationship with you, by the way, that you invest in. So these are important, really important things for you to be considering at your dealership, because every time a customer leaves your site to go and do some research, you basically just gave that opportunity to someone else. So you want to be bridging the filter barrier, right? It's not about redesigning your website overnight. It's really just about rethinking how you show up in search and how you structure your content and how you guide your customer from curiosity and research to conversion. So here's your challenge before you come back for the next episode. Find one question your customers are asking and have your website company build a page that answers it better than anyone else. That's essentially Cody's laying out he's encouraging you to do this. So it will definitely help you. If you need help with that, well, I've said it a number of times, reach out and talk to SEMD, talk to Cody, go over and get connected with them, all of them on LinkedIn. If you found today's conversation valuable, share it with somebody. If you're watching this on YouTube, subscribe. Not because we're trying to become influencers on YouTube. It just lets you know when we put another episode out into the wild, you'll know faster than anybody else. So until next time, keep building, keep optimizing, and we'll see you on the next round.